All right, good morning everyone in the world, and good morning everybody who's here. Happy to be here talking suttas with everybody, whatever time it is. It's 8 o'clock here in the morning on the East Coast, and it's always a great time to talk suttas, especially when you want it. And that's one of the nice things about the World Wide Web, YouTube, is you can get your fill of suttas and fill of Dhamma study whenever you want it. So today, as per usual, we'll begin with the homage to the Triple Gem. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ Dhammāṃ Saṅghāṃ Namasahāmi. Okay, so just before we get started diving more deeply into suttas, we'd like to just share this very compassionate gift. This is a zabuton, a heart-shaped sitting cushion, which Joseph Hammond shared with the Sangha, and I'm going to sit on it. Yeah. And this was, did you offer this one too? No, but he did say that you can put this on top of the heart, and it's like the sun reflecting on top of the heart. So, sadhu, Joseph. Okay, so the sutta we're going to be going into today is in the Majjhima Nikaya, Majjhima number 32, the Mahāgosiṅgasutta. And it's a very fun sutta, and I feel like it's a very communally engaging sutta, both the story behind it and the way that you can relate to it with your Dhamma friends. So I think I'll be doing a bit of an introduction with some screen share, and then I probably will be turning it to the other venerables here. We have one other Ajahn here, Ajahn Wade, and two Samaneras, Venerable Kevala and Venerable Nipako, and Anagarika Samasiha, and then two guests, Joseph and Doron. So the central question, which we'll be posing to everyone, myself included, is what kind of, I'll read the exact quotes, so, and we'll give some more context, but this is a sutta which takes place in a sal grove, so a beautiful forest, and it's the full moon night, and all of these great disciples of the Buddha are coming out and kind of just going to each other's huts to actually get everybody to come to one place together. And this is not a total spoiler, it happens very early in the sutta, but they ask one another, quote, the Sal Forest Park at Gosinga is lovely. The night is bright. The sal trees are in full blossom, and the heavenly scents seem to float on the air. So a beautiful scene, transported to the forest. Hopefully all of us have more, or if possible, if you have to do it less, but more or less opportunities to practice in a forest, especially with other practitioners. So that's the scene. And the same exists today, forest monasteries. And the central question is, what kind of bhikkhu, or what kind of practitioner would grace this park? Or another translation is, what kind of samana would brighten the sal tree forest? So the central question which is being asked is a very individual one, and as we'll see, the different senior monastics answer differently according to their own inclination and aspiration. So I'll be putting this question to all of you. What kind of practitioner would light up the universe? What kind of practitioner inspires you? What kind of practitioner do you aspire to be? What is a beautiful, enlightening practitioner to your own mind? So you all the people here and everyone online, as I go through this sutta, you can be considering that for yourself, because there are lots of different answers. Different humans have different inclinations, different dispositions, and there are different, say, paradigms or different archetypes even the monk, the monastic, is its own archetype, but there are different sub-archetypes of the monastic. It's not just one robotic form, one size fits all, but we have this list of superlatives in the Anguttara Nikaya 1. It's something to 80 or 84 different very short suttas, which it's hard to even call them a sutta. It's just one line. This bhikkhu is the foremost. Ajahn Sariputta is the foremost in great wisdom. Mahāgosiṅgasutta, foremost in psychic powers. Ananda, foremost in 5 things. Great discernment, i.e. ditthi, or penetrative insight. Great memory. He's a great upatak, or a great attendant. He's great at 2 other things, which I can't remember, but he's just great. He's got lots of greatness. And similarly with other monks, you have Revata, who's foremost at dwelling in seclusion. And then you've got someone like Mahākachana, who's foremost in being able to elaborate a teaching which has been given in brief. So you've got people both who are inclined towards solitude and not speaking, maybe the more introverted of the enlightened beings. And you've got perhaps, it's hard to even say this introvert-extrovert, typical personality trait which we impute and really stick the label on of most personalities. As you practice, all of us will probably notice that all of these labels, introvert, extrovert, open, closed, conscientious, non-conscientious, all of these things start to apply less, or when you see that you're not fixed in your personality. But introvert, extrovert, we've got the whole range of enlightened beings, and figuring out how to be, what would it look like? What would an enlightened extrovert look like? What would an enlightened introvert look like? And we've got examples in the suttas. So with that prolonged intro, we'll share the screen and just welcome to everybody who's tuning in. Ajahn Nisabo, my fellow Clear Mountaineer, he's joining. He just says greetings. Greeting, singular, period. Yeah, good to see you, Ajahn. Jayanta Nisabo again, greetings, plural, nice. Manal is here, and Madeline, Brian, Bhumika. Very glad you're all joining us. It's nice to study suttas together. So we'll share the screen. And for anybody who doesn't know, Ajahn Nisabo and I, my name is Ajahn Kovilo, and we're starting a monastery in Seattle called Clear Mountain Monastery. And you can go onto the web and search that, and you'll find some stuff. So sharing the screen. This is Sutta Central. And here we have the sutta, the longer discourse at Gosinga, Majjhima 32. The sutta just before this, 31, was a lot of fun as well, the shorter discourse at Gosinga, where we meet Anuruddha and his 3 friends who are all practicing in delight and concord, viewing each other with kindly eyes like milk and water, or as we say in Seattle, like coffee and water. So at the beginning of the sutta, we have this beautiful Sala Grove, the Gosinga Park, and there are many well-known senior disciples. Venerable Sariputta, as I said, foremost in great wisdom. Mahāgosiṅgasutta, foremost in psychic powers. Mahākassapa, foremost in ascetic practices. We have Anuruddha, who's foremost in the divine eye. Revata, foremost in seclusion. Ananda, foremost in being a great attendant. Someone who's beloved by the fourfold Sangha. And the Buddha did praise. He would have these superlatives of not just the bhikkhus, but also the bhikkhunis. You have the foremost bhikkhuni disciples in wisdom, in psychic powers, in teaching capacity. And you have foremost laymen and foremost lay women practitioners, which is awesome that the Buddha was so inclusive, which would make sense of a Buddha. So it starts off with Venerable Mahāmoggallana, foremost in psychic powers after he's been meditating for a while, comes out of his retreat, i.e. meditation, and went to the Venerable Mahākassapa, foremost in ascetic practices, and says, Venerable Kassapa, let's go to Venerable Puta to hear the teachings. These are enlightened beings, but they still want to have this Kalyana relationship to learn from one another. And Mahākassapa, again, this very ascetic teacher, keeping the practices of 1 meal a day, wearing rag robes, living in the forest for his whole Dhamma life. He's like, yes, let's go see Sariputta. And they go, and Venerable Ananda sees them going, and he's like, oh man, I gotta go, what's going on? The exact quote is, Ananda sees them, and he's like, I want to go too. And then he tells his friend, Revata, and he's like, let's go, let's see what's happening. And then Sariputta is at his hut, or at his tree root, practicing, and Sariputta sees him in the distance, and so kindly he says, come, Venerable Nanda, welcome to the Venerable Nanda, the Buddha's attendant, who is close to the Buddha. The Sal Forest Park at Gosinga is lovely. The night is bright, the sal trees are in full blossom. The heavenly scents seem to float on the air. What kind of mendicant would grace this park? What kind of practitioner? Again, the word bhikkhu can, Bhante Analayo makes a very good point, that it can be. There are other practitioners here. It's not just Ananda, so it's certainly plural. What kind of bhikkhu? And the Buddha uses it very inclusively. If it is a mixed assembly of bhikkhunis and bhikkhus and laymen and laywomen, this term bhikkhave will apply to everyone. So the question is for what kind of mendicant, bhikkhu, practitioner, what kind of practitioner would light up the world? Who are you inspired by? What archetype of mendicancy, of renunciant are you inspired by? And I'll just summarize these in brief so that we can have more time to go around and hear each of your inspirations. Sariputta says he's inspired by someone who has sati and who has memorized a lot, able to keep in mind what they've heard, the teachings that are beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. And that's what Ananda said. So basically, according to his own inclination, he's foremost in memory, in sati, and in memorizing the teachings. So that's the type of mendicant that he is inspired by. And then Sariputta says, what about you, Revata? And Revata says, that Ananda has answered from his own heart. What do you think, Revata? And then Revata says, someone who enjoys retreat and loves retreat, patisalana. They're committed to inner serenity of heart, and they don't neglect absorption. They're endowed with discernment, and they frequent empty huts. So a somewhat different form. And this is oftentimes what many Westerners kind of impute that a monastery should be. It's all quiet, all the time, people living by themselves, very minimal conversation. But that's just one way to be a monastic. That's just one way that a monastery can operate. And then Sariputta asks Anuruddha, foremost in the divine eye. And Anuruddha says that the type of mendicant who has clairvoyance, the divine eye, the Dibba Chaku, and can see humans and divine beings, and over 1,000 orbits, 1,000 world systems, just as if from the upper floor one might see people down below. Such a person would grace this park. That's an inspiring monk for Anuruddha. Then Sariputta asks Venerable Kassapa, foremost in ascetic practices, and Mahākassapa says someone who lives in the wilderness, eats alms food, rag robes, wears 3 robes. They praise these things. They praise fewness of wishes, contentment, seclusion, aloofness, energy, and are accomplished in sila, samadhi, panya, vimutti, and i.e. freedom and deliverance. And not only do they practice these things, they praise them as well. Mahākassapa, good answer, according to his own disposition. That type of mendicant would enlighten, brighten the sultry grove. Then they ask Venerable Moggallana, foremost in psychic powers. And what do you think the monk foremost in psychic powers would answer? Anybody? What do you think?
Psychic powers.
One might think that he would answer in psychic powers. I would have thought, and I think I've even said that out loud. What's that? Compassion. A little bit, yeah. So his response is, it's when two mendicants, two practitioners, engage in discussion about the teachings. They question each other, one might assume with compassion, and answer each other's questions without faltering, and their discussion on the teaching flows on. That type of practitioner would grace this park. So interesting. Foremost in psychic powers, but praises just Dhamma talk, Dhamma conversation. And then, finally, even though Sariputta was the host, and the whole thing was started because everybody's like, what is Sariputta? What's he going to say? He is so humble, he asks everybody first, and then he goes to himself. So actually, after I summarize this, I'm going to put it all onto you before I go to me. I was thinking I would go first, but then Sariputta does something better, so we'll do it that way. And Sariputta's answer is, it's when a mendicant masters their mind and is not mastered by it. In the morning, they abide in whatever meditation or attainment they want. Same at midday, same at evening. In the same way, yeah. So that's what they do. They're master of their own mind. That's what Sariputta praises. And then, what would they do? The Buddha's still alive. They go to the Buddha. And what kind of mendicant? The sal tree forest is lovely. The night is bright. The sal trees are in full bloom, and the heavenly scents seem to float on the air. Beautiful scene. What kind of mendicant? Venerable Sir, Venerable Buddha would grace this park. They reported the whole thing to the Buddha, what everybody else said, and the Buddha says, you've all spoken well in your own way. However, listen to me also as to what kind of mendicant would grace the sal tree park. It's a mendicant who, after the meal, returns from alm round, sits down cross-legged, sets their body erect, and establishes mindfulness in their presence, thinking, I will not break this sitting posture until my mind is freed from the defilements by not grasping. That's the kind of mendicant who would grace this park. That's what the Buddha said, and everybody loved it because he's the Buddha and they're wise. So great answer from the Buddha, and that doesn't mean that everybody else got the question wrong. That's just the Buddha's, that's how he was inspired to answer based on who the audience was. So with that, we will see what the other venerables here say, and stop sharing screen. And yes, we are down in the library in Empty Cloud. If anyone's ever been here, it's a wonderful library, a lot of great books, and we are experiencing a transition. The Venerable Bhante Sudaso, my Dhamma brother from Abhayagiri, and Ayasoma have left to go to Italy, and they pretend like it's not a huge deal, but they have left. They took their favorite teacups, which means it's a big thing, it means it's a serious thing. They will be back, they will visit, but they are no longer incumbent to some degree. They are practicing in a forest in Italy. There really is not a monastery, honestly. It's a forest with some tents. And Venerable Ayasobana, a wonderful teacher, a wonderful bhikkhuni, had lived at Dhamma and what's the name of that place?
Bhavana Society of West Virginia.
Yes, Bhavana Society in West Virginia. That's where she started practicing, and she is the new abbot. So I hope everybody rejoices in that. That's public. This isn't a spoiler. But yeah, hope everybody can join more of these monk chats and teachings. She'll be on it regularly. She is currently visiting Dhamma, or else she would be up here. But yeah, so in this transition, all of this to say, if you look around the library and say, oh, it looks like a little bit of a mess, do not think that. We are in transition, and the monastery exists as not just a home for monastics, but also as a place for lay people practitioners to come. So if you find anything uninspiring, then don't blame it on the monks. And so our first interviewee, and feel free to speak, it's 8:22, and we've got till 9, and there might be some time for questions and also for people tuning in to share your thoughts on what kind of mendicant, what kind of practitioner would brighten the world. Might have time for that, but feel free for everyone here to share as long as you'd like. And our first person sharing who would inspire, brighten, grace the Empty Cloud Monastery or the whole universe. What is an inspiring archetype of a monastic practitioner? This is good friend Ajahn Wade Boribanyo.
Okay, Ajahn, thank you. A wonderful introduction, if I may say so. Personally, I found it very inspiring hearing your introduction, so thank you. What kind of a practitioner? So I take this question as who would be inspiring to me, or who is inspiring to me, and so it made me think of what practitioners have been inspiring to me, and there's so many who have been inspiring in a wide variety of ways, and so maybe what I'll talk about is one who was inspiring to me in a certain way, who he seemed to be remarkably accomplished, because he never seemed to show, as far as I could see, any signs of greed, aversion, or delusion. And he seemed like really selfless. He seemed very selfless. And he was always working at that point in his career. He was always, as a monk, he was always working for the benefit of other people in everything he did. One aspect of this I found very inspiring was that him being free of greed, aversion, and delusion, and seeming selfless in terms of what I could see, was that he was very human also, and so sometimes he would make mistakes. Sometimes he'd make goofs. A lot of people think, how could he do that? Goofs that would be sometimes quite inspiring. Embarrassing. Not inspiring mistakes, but embarrassing mistakes. Excuse me. I think that a lot of people would be embarrassed by. I know I've been embarrassed sometimes to make goofs, and but he was never embarrassed. And if he realized he made a mistake, he did something wrong, he seemed still utterly at peace and unbothered by it. And I thought that was a very inspiring example to me, about being. To me, it seemed like being highly accomplished in Dhamma doesn't mean that you become perfect, you never make any mistakes, but that you're free of selfishness and you don't suffer over these kinds of things anymore, which I thought was really wonderful.
Ajahn, did you say the name of the practitioner? I just missed it, or did you want to keep it anonymous?
Well, I could name him, sure. I was thinking of Lumpur Anand, Kinchana.
It's beautiful. Just someone free from greed, anger, and delusion, and utterly selfless, and not afraid to make a mistake.
Yeah, in my own estimation.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, and our next sharer. Thank you very much, Ajahn. Next sharer, who would make the sal tree grow, shine, who would grace it, and what kind of practitioner brightens the world. We'll go to Samaneri Nipaka, who's usually second. At least yesterday and today. I'm sorry, and by Samaneri Nipaka, I mean Samaneri Kovilo.
Wasn't sure what was going on. Well, when I think about the teachers who have been most inspiring to me, I think of someone who is as kind as they are wise. That's what I have to say about that.
Sadhu, sadhu. Okay, and now let's go to the real Venerable Nipako.
So for me, it's somewhat similar to what Samaneri Kevala said. I think of a Kalyanamita that is patient, quick to forgive, and is also very wise, so they know how to use their speech regardless of the different situations to bring the most benefit.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So we have Venerable Kevala praising the type practitioners kind as they are wise, and Venerable Nipako praising right speech, skill in speech, wisdom around that. So sadhu. And we'll go to Anagarika Samasiha. Please share what kind of practitioner is inspiring and makes the world shine.
I feel surrounded by practitioners who make the world bright for me. I feel very blessed to be in a relationship with Ayasovana, whose wisdom and scholarly aptitude is so strong, and who is able to hold that within the context of being clearly someone who is in a practicer of joy and bliss. So to be around that is wonderful. And Bhante Sudaso and Ayasama, I appreciate both of them for their passion and their focus and their ability, their charisma to connect with such amazing community. And my fellow practitioners, the Samaneri, everyone here is so fully focused on the Dhamma and completely focused, as well as our lay practitioner friends. There's a core of people who I admire and appreciate so much for the clarity of their service and their generosity. And I think those are the qualities that I really appreciate, is the dropping away of self when people are just with a mind on the Dhamma and Sangha and the Triple Gem, with a pure focus and complete absorption in the practices. So to be surrounded by people like that feels like I'm surrounded by devas.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So a great example of many different types of practitioners, but just being able to see the beauty in maybe one shared quality of all the venerables who you named, and is this dropping away of self, and it just manifests differently based on causes and conditions within each person. Sadhu. Beautiful. Let's go to Venerable, or not yet officially. You're still a great person. Doran, please, if you would be up for sharing what type of practitioner is inspiring.
To me, I guess, very similar to being inspired by Bhante Wade, is the person, the mendicant or the practitioner who inspires me, seems to light the world, would be the one who loses the self and the clinging to self, and has that humility of not clinging to any of the khandhas as me, myself, I, or mine. Thank you.
Sadhu. A lot of letting go of self. Sadhu. And we'll go to Joseph, who is already illuminating physically the 10,000 world system with his LED flashlight. Heart. Joseph, what kind of monastic would illuminate the empty cloud and the universe?
Right. Well, right now, at this time, I'm really inspired by the science of kindness. So the question would be, who is foremost in giving kindness? Who is foremost in receiving kindness? And who is foremost in witnessing kindness? So I was kind of contemplating that. The mendicants who came to mind were Venerable Subhuti. Subhuti is foremost in abiding in non-conflict, and he's also foremost in deserving offerings. So on that level, he would be foremost in receiving kindness. So it'd be one, and him abiding in non-conflict would be incredible to witness. So he's foremost in giving freedom from conflict, which seems very incredibly kind. And to witness him being foremost in deserving offerings would be a great kindness. I was also thinking about Venerable Sariputta as foremost in great wisdom. And great wisdom is declared by the Buddha as when one thinks, they think in a way that doesn't lead to their affliction, the affliction of others, the affliction of both, and the affliction of the whole world. They think, what, when I do it, will benefit myself, others, both, and the whole world. So I feel like in terms of kindness, wisdom, again, is very kind. So Venerable Sariputta would be very kind because he would know what was kindest to do at any time. So that would be a blessing to be around. And so those are the two that came to mind. I was also thinking Venerable Ananda is literally very kind, foremost in taking care of the person foremost in receiving offerings, the Buddha himself. So that would be a great blessing to spend time with Venerable Ananda. And then I thought Venerable Anaruddha would be foremost in witnessing kindness because of his divine eye. He could see kindness in the most places. But in terms of giving, receiving, and witnessing, of course, the Buddha would be, Bhagavato would be foremost in the giving, the greatest of gifts. Arahato is foremost in the receiving of gifts. And having the three knowledges of countless past lives, knowing the coming and going of beings based on their karma, and abiding with here and now in freedom from greed, hatred, and ignorance, that's the foremost witnessing of kindness. So sadhu, it would be a great blessing to see the Buddha.
Sadhu. Thank you, Joseph, and thank you, everybody. Really glad to hear that for myself. I love hearing about what inspires different practitioners, and you didn't let me down. That was awesome. And would encourage everybody to consider that question: what is the inspiring archetype of a practitioner that inspires you? People can feel free to put that in the chat. And now that the question has been asked and you have reflected and have an answer for yourself, just introduce one very useful practice that can incorporate that kind of essential quality that you really care about, So it's in something that we do many times every day, certainly if you're living in a monastery, but there's nothing monastery dependent about this, is bowing. So when you wake up first thing in the morning, hopefully we all bow 3 times to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha before going to bed, bowing 3 times again, bowing anytime we come into a shrine room, and just finding different occasions to bow. And it really can, the more you do it, or if you're living at some place where that's just the thing that everybody does, it can become rote and a bit meaningless. It can be just another physical gesture like this. So figuring out ways to potentize, to bring actual meaning to those 3 bows. And so one framework for that, which I really like, is for the first bow, when you take refuge, I take refuge in the Buddha, and then remembering and reflecting on what is your long-term goal for this life. So for me, I take refuge in the Buddha for the attainment of Nibbana and for attaining competency and proficiency in the quality, which I'll reveal in a moment, is my own kind of a beautiful quality of a practitioner. And so for all of you, as you bow, I take refuge in the Buddha for attaining Nibbana, or whatever your longest term goal is, for the happiness of your family, and for attaining and practicing in the fulfillment of selflessness, of ridding the heart from greed, anger, and delusion in the case of Ajahn Wade, or kindness and wisdom in Kevila's case, or skill in speech with Venerable Nipako, or again, selflessness with both Venerable Samasiha and Doran, and all of the good qualities with Joseph. So this first bout, remembering that and getting it this, it's almost a sigil effect. So what a sigil is a symbol in which you concentrate many meanings down. It's like an essential oil or a very concentrate solution. You have all this image of what an enlightened being or your long-term goal is, or what a beautiful practitioner is, and you're boiling it down to this one phrase, I take refuge in the Buddha, as you bow. The Dhamma is your present moment goal. So when you bow to the Dhamma, that second bow, what is your present moment goal? For me, it's I take refuge in the Dhamma for attaining and participating in that Dhamma which is apparent here and now and timeless. And for the present moment expression of my own beautiful Dhamma, Mahāgosiṅga quality. So can you all practice selflessness, freedom from greed, anger, and delusion, kindness in the present moment? So the second vow is present moment, what you want to bring to that. And third is I take refuge in the Sangha for whatever your communal goal is. So for me, I take refuge in the Sangha for the benefit and happiness of all beings. So, yeah, take that for what you will and do potentize. Don't let your vows be impotent. Don't let your vows be just complete rote gesture, because we have this opportunity. You've stopped the monastery. Certainly you're living in a monastery. There's time to bow. There's time to remember why you're actually here. So just for myself, the type of mendicant which would brighten the world is someone who is suvacha. Suvacha. Who knows the meaning of that word? Anybody? Ajahn Wade.
One who receives feedback well.
Yeah, that's typically how it's translated. One who receives... No, perfect. One who receives feedback well. One who's easy to admonish, I think is how Bhikkhu Bodhi does it. But literally, su just means well, or sometimes even beautiful, good. Su vacha, speech. So basically one who is easy to speak to. And there's a sutta which I'll screen share now, which is called the Anumana Sutta, which is on inference. Or Bhante Sujato translates it as measuring up. Do I have the right sutta? No. The sutta on measuring up, which gives description on how to be one who is easy to talk to. And I really do recommend, especially if you're living in a monastery, studying this, because the Buddha said we should look at someone who gives us feedback or someone who points out our faults as someone pointing out hidden treasure. And that really is how we develop. The reason why we're not yet Buddhas is because we don't see our blind spots, or we don't have proficiency in relating to our blind spots. So one of the reasons why Kalyanamitta is the whole of the holy life is because having spiritual companions, they can see parts of us which we don't see. And oftentimes it's not that deep, it's really on the surface. You live with somebody for a week and you can see deeper into their mind sometimes than they do. Our own motives are sometimes hidden, but we display them to the world. So these are ways of receiving feedback well, of being easy to speak to. It's when someone speaks to you, or as Ajahn Wade said, someone admonishes you or gives you feedback. There's something like 16 or 19 different things that you don't do. And why the list is fascinating is because this was said 2,600 years ago, but it's still the way that we receive feedback in a really less than skillful way, which someone might think, and this is part of the sutta, may I be easy to admonish, may I be suvacha, may I be sovachasa, one who receives feedback well. But if you don't actually receive feedback well, if you're a jerk in these 16 different ways, then people see it and they don't want to give you feedback. And then it's as if you're kind of cut off. So how do we make ourselves easy to speak to? And I do think it's a beautiful quality, and I do see lack in my own practice. And that's why I really do value it. And I do feel someone like the Buddha are really, the Buddha was certainly perfected in this suvacha, sovacha. The Buddha gives it in a different list in the Anguttara Nikaya 2s as what are these two qualities which lead to beautification, which beautify a mind. And what are they? Khanti and sovachasa, that is patience and being easy to talk to. These are beautiful qualities, and you know it. If you've ever worked with someone and you try to give them feedback and they're a jerk, it's unbeautiful. Or if you try to give them feedback and they're like, thank you, that's great, then it is beautiful. So what does someone who's suvacha do when they receive feedback? They do not glorify themselves and put down others. They don't, in response to that feedback, be irritable and overcome with anger, be irritable and acrimonious due to the anger, or be stubborn, or blurt out words bordering on anger. Koda samanta, which is really, it's good to be careful of this. So oftentimes, if irritation is in the heart, even if the words that we're saying, you write them on paper and it looks like, oh, there's no problem with that. But polluted and kind of tinged by an angry heart, even words which look okay on paper can be bordering on anger. So watching out for that. When giving feedback, you object to it, or you rebuke the accuser, or you give feedback to the feedback giver, or you retort to the feedback giver, or you dodge the issue, distract the discussion with irrelevant points, and display annoyance, hate, and bitterness. You, when given feedback or accused, you're unable to account for things, or you're offensive and contemptuous and jealous and stingy and devious and deceitful and obstinate and arrogant. Or here's a very fascinating one. You are attached to your own views, hold to them tightly, and refuse to let them go. So someone who doesn't do that is a beautiful practitioner in my own mind. I love it when I can be easy to speak to, and I love it when others are as well. So with that, we'll open up, what do other people feel? And we've got Brian says, someone who abiding in non-conflict, truly something that would illuminate the world at this time. Yeah, beautiful statement. Would recommend for you, Brian, the Arana Vibhanga, which is the discourse on non-conflict, Majjhima 1 number 139. So yes, someone who can abide in non-conflict, very difficult these days. And Sud, maybe Sudha, says, one who is gentle in speech and someone who can be corrected easily. Yep, that's Sovacha, so probably seeing the beauty in that as well. So with that, I think this is just an awesome question to bring to your friend groups. If you're in a group of practitioners, say you've invited your local Zen group over to make Dharma collages and that kind of thing, then you can kind of seed this question, what kind of practitioner illuminates the world? And then you learn not just about the Dhamma, but you learn about your friends' own inclinations and conditions. So it's a cool question to ask of your Dhamma friends, seeding Dhamma conversation. So with that, we'll open things up to just general questions. And if anybody had questions either on this sutta or had any more reflections on your own way of relating to these or anything else. I think some people did have questions related maybe to other things, and those can come up now too. We've got about 15 minutes. Yeah, Joseph.
So thank you, Venerable. So the bordering on the border, I feel like that could be really tense in terms of like not even saying. So like, what about sorrow? If you're like frustrated and you're trying to figure out, you don't get what's going on, is that bordering on anger? Is there a difference between being frustrated and letting that known, or is that still considered anger?
Yeah, no, it's good to have this, what's called in medicine, a differential diagnosis. Mm-hmm. So to take the word anger or being not easy to give feedback to, and what are the different qualities with that are included by that. Mm-hmm. So I think that's very often the case, is when you're given feedback or someone says something which is displeasing, someone points something out which is quite raw for us. There can be an idealistic approach, which I may have just put forward, of just, if there's any anger, then don't say anything. But you can't always do that. Sometimes you're called up to speak. Certainly, if it's a situation with a boss, or perhaps with a spouse, where there's a decision point which needs to be made time bound, and you need to respond. You can't wait for your aversion to dissipate. Noticing if it's the degree to which the different flavors of anger or confusion or irritation are fueling that, and then just bracketing the conversation. So just saying, thank you for the feedback. That's always a beautiful thing to say. Thank you for the feedback. And honestly, I'm feeling a little bit triggered by that. I'm feeling a little bit, it's bringing some stuff up for me. I'm feeling activated by that. And that's manifesting in a bit of confusion. I actually don't know if I can speak from a place of much wisdom, because the Buddha does say when the mind is tinged by the colors of greed, anger, and delusion, one doesn't see their own welfare, the welfare of others, the welfare of both clearly. So I'm experiencing irritation or confusion right now, so just to acknowledge that for myself and for you, and here's my response, and then trying to be as skillful as possible with having aired that. So you bracket that. What I'm going to say is bracketed by this emotion, and a really useful simile or I think image for that is to recognize that we are all like tiny monkeys, singular, riding on a big elephant. And what is the monkey might think, oh, I'm the one who controls the elephant. I say, go here, and maybe I tap it on the right, and the elephant goes that way, or maybe it doesn't. The monkey thinks they're in control, but really, the elephant's huge, and it doesn't always listen to the monkey. And what is the elephant? The elephant is our emotions, a lot of our habitual states. And it might be a more or less trained elephant, a more or less amenable to feedback from the monkey. You probably could train an elephant to follow instructions from a monkey very well, but the elephant's big and it's working from its own causes and conditions, which we are training, but it's got its own momentum. And the monkey, that's our explanation, that's our cognitive, intellectual, explanatory faculties. So the bracketing is, I'm being moved by this elephant, and I have to acknowledge it, and I'm going to let the monkey speak for a little bit, but the monkey itself is not a human. So that's one way to relate to trying to receive feedback well. So go online, or if anyone else has anything here, go to Sood. Sood says, Dear Bhante, how would one deal with ill will that shows up despite the mind wanting to be suvacha? How should one practice to develop this suvacha in daily life? Can you kindly please summarize? Yeah, I think that's a very similar question of how do we be suvacha, how do we be easy to speak to, easy to admonish, even when there is ill will. Yeah, we don't have full control of the elephant, so trying to be as wise a monkey as we can, to acknowledge the elephants in our closets, to mix similes. And yeah, just, we do have different skills. Nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg has a number of really good frameworks, of which he doesn't summarize it with this acronym, but I don't know why he doesn't, because it's super obvious, and the acronym is OFNR, OFNR, and as in, we should practice these 4 skills, observation, feeling, needs, and requests, more often, oftener. We should bring this into our lives, practice it more often. So stating our observations, and Ajahn Nispo and I will add a G to make it Goffener. So actually preface everything with the gratitude, Goffener. So you say, actually, thank you for the feedback, and if we've got any kind of wisdom, we can preface, even if you've given me feedback I don't want to hear, still, I'm grateful to hear it. I am someone who wants to be able to receive feedback well. And you've probably done good things to me in this book, which I think I've given all of you. Thus you should train yourself. One of the trainings, after given the simile, or an example of a jackal, the Buddha points to this jackal and says, even this jackal running around the forest, even it has gratitude. So too, thus you should train yourselves. We will be ones who experience katanyu katavedi, gratitude and thankfulness, or katanyu, anyu, knowing that which has been done, intellectually thinking about that which has been done, and katavedi, vedi, feeling it. So gratitude on the level of thought, and gratitude, thankfulness on the level of feelings. And hopefully all of us are getting better at that. So prefacing it with that, thus you should train yourselves. We will be ones who are grateful, even of that which has been given of small measure. The Buddha also says, thus you should train yourselves. We will be suvacha and make ourselves suvacha. We will be easy to admonish and make ourselves easy to admonish. Thus you should train yourselves. So that is some reflections on how to be grateful. And then gratitude oftener is observations. So I'm sensing the situation like that. I'm observing in myself some activation, and I'm perhaps observing in you what I'm seeing is some activation. And about the situation, here are my observations. The feelings, and these are the elephants. These are the feelings behind. I'm feeling hurt, avoiding language like I'm feeling victimized or I'm feeling put upon. Those are not helpful in this situation. So not using feeling language which implicates the other person as imposing upon me, but taking personal responsibility. I'm the owner of my actions, heir of my actions. Personal responsibility. I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling a bit angry. I'm feeling irritated. Or I'm feeling joyful that you gave this feedback. That's really helpful. And not if you say I'm feeling like, or I'm feeling that like and that are often indications that what you're about to say is not actually a feeling on the level of heart, but is a thought. So I'm feeling that you're a big butthead, to quote someone else from recent days. Or I'm feeling like I'm feeling like this is a stupid conversation. So I'm feeling like, or I'm feeling that, kind of circle around. You're using the word feeling, but you're not actually tapping into what the heart is saying. So gratitudes, observations, feelings, needs is, for me, it's hard actually. What is a need in a Buddhist context? So I reframe it as a wholesome desire. I have a wholesome desire, a need for mutual understanding. Like I would like for you to understand, and I have this need, this wholesome desire for you to understand me, and I value this relationship between you and I. So I can't force this upon you. I can't need into you. I can't need you in a certain way, but I have a wholesome desire that we speak to each other kindly, and I have a wholesome desire that we can resolve this, and that whatever your needs are. And then requests, I would like to request that you ... So Goffiner, gratitude, observation, feelings, needs, requests. It's another good format to really shift from speaking from the elephant and shift out of speaking just from the monkey. That's helpful. We have another question online, but anything in person from... We go online. So Louis says, Dear Bhante, can one send loving kindness to relatives who have passed away? Definitely. There's actually a sutta where the Buddha says, is talking about sharing merits. This patidana, or sharing merits. It's not a common practice in the West yet, but the Buddha says it is, there can be this transfer. And specifically, there are certain beings in certain realms which are more or less able to receive that merit. And this dedication merit is a type of loving kindness. And the Buddha says people in the ghost realms are especially sensitive to receiving this dedication merit. So any goodness that we've done this morning, we chanted together, we woke up early, we got out of bed, we chanted together, we meditated together, we did service towards the monastery, listening to Dhamma, speaking Dhamma. I dedicate that to all my deceased relatives. And the Buddha, this is in the suttas, that there is this transference. And even if you think, I don't know how that works, or I don't believe in other realms, or whatever, still, maybe it can work. Just as a book dedication, at the beginning of a book, it says, I dedicate this book to my mother and father. I dedicate this book to whoever it might be. So too, it can work like that. If anyone knows, someone Ajahn Kovilo had a slight dedication in the book Stillness Flowing to Kovilo Bhikkhu, as I was one of the editors. And anytime I think about that, I feel uplifted, and I'll usually tell somebody, because that's the kind of guy I am. I'll tell somebody that I had to do the book. Yeah. But dedication of merit is just like that. So, yeah, it can work, and loving kindness certainly to people who are living. We only have 3 minutes left. I might prioritize people on Zoom. Is it okay if we go all the way, or should we wrap up before? Okay. So I'll maybe just do one more question, maybe from Tinnery. Dear Bhante, how do I practice the 4 Brahmaviharas toward myself and others? I think this is a really good question to ask yourself. We really have to have a mature loving kindness practice. It can't be rote. It can't be rote. Having certain phrases, may I abide in well-being, in freedom from affliction, freedom from hostility, and freedom from ill will, and freedom from anxiety, that can be great to prime ourselves, especially when the mind is dull or uninspired. But having language which is more meaningful for us, or even one particular word, just as we talked about this concentrating sigil effect, where we concentrate things down, you concentrate all of your wholesome aspirations to the word Buddho, which means to awaken. Similarly, you can concentrate all your positive feelings for even those 4 Brahmaviharas, because we don't have time to go into all 4. You can bring all of those into one word, such as metta. That can become the sigil. That can become the potent icon, the potent image of your metta. So every time you say metta, it's just utterly full, like a big bang, like that. Whatever was happening, the moment of the big bang, whatever that is, all of our metta can be in this word, or this symbol, and figuring out what that is for you. Sometimes for me, metta is softness, and softness, that's an English word. That's not Pali, but for me, oftentimes that's exactly what I need to do with loving kindness. It's just soft. And metta is more powerful because I love me some Pali, but see if that works to create your own Brahmavihara potency. So I'll recommend that. And it's 8:59, so we'll close the teachings, and we can all maybe say sadhu together 3 times. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Anumodami. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, and we can all pay respects to the Buddha together. Araham Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddham Bhagavantam Abhivademi Soakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sangham Namami. And so hope everybody does. Please do start with just 2 minutes. Set yourself 6 minutes today to spend 2 minutes. What is your long-term goal that you're going to bow to every time you do that first bow to the Buddha? What is your present moment goal that you are going to aspire to every time you bow? And what is your communal goal? Spend 2 minutes. I'm just asking for 6 minutes. Just asking for 6 minutes. Spend 6 minutes today spending time that's a starting place. And this will be the kernel, which you can use every time you bow. So, sadhu. Thanks for joining us, everybody.